Welcome in. Thank you for joining me, everybody. And starting out really quickly here, let's just jump into it. I'm starting out this simple drawing of a lemon. This was my first drawing in a very long time, probably over a year. And so I'm starting out with just some thumbnail sketches. And you can see in the bottom two corners, I have the grayscale image and I have the image in color. Now I was drawing this from life, but I got kind of the same angle almost that I was looking at, and I didn't look at this lemon in black and white until after I drew it. But I want to show you guys what it looks like in black and white, and it's actually really deceptive. If you look at that lemon on the right in full color, uh, the yellow doesn't look like it's very dark, but looking in the black and white, there is a lot of dark gray to this lemon, and I intuitively picked up on that. As you'll see by the end of this drawing here, I knew it was going to be a lot darker than I thought it was, and I just tried to do my best and observe the values. And I think that's where painting really helped with drawing, actually, is converting the color into value. So I'm just doing a simple sketch here, just trying to figure out okay, here's a shadow, here's a cast shadow, and then just separating light from shadow, basically. And it's always just a good exercise that before you jump into the main drawing, that you figure out, you do thumbnail sketches to figure out the composition, kind of break down the values, and just see where you're at with the drawing. Because usually the first time you draw something, it probably won't be the best. Usually the second or third time you draw something, it's going to come out better. So I try to start out with short, quick sketches. But like I said, with these, I'm just planning out, kind of shadow and light. I'm not getting all the intermediate steps of value and such. I'll also throw up on the screen sometime throughout this tutorial a breakdown of the lemon and how I observed it, how I thought about it, using mid-tone light and highlight on the light side, and then shadow and reflected light on the shadow side, and also a very dark accent shadow. So really there's like 6 main values that I tried to think about. There's probably more involved, and there can be more values involved, but just kind of simplifying that and thinking of highlight, light, mid-tone, and shadow, reflected light, and a dark accent. The highlight and the dark accent are both accents, basically. The lightest and darkest value, and the mid-tone is kind of the base color of the lemon, the true color, and then the light is just kind of a step up from that mid-tone. And the mid-tone is in the light, but it's almost when it's turning into the shadow. It's what's called like the half-tone. The shadow is kind of self-explanatory, and then a reflected light is never as light as something in the light. It's just a step up from the shadow value. So I hope that makes sense, and I was able to break that down for you a little bit. And whenever you're painting or drawing or doing any kind of art, you kind of want to break it down like that. Think of, okay, where is the highlight? Where are the accents? Where's the lightest highlight and the darkest color or darkest value? And then you kind of move away from there and go, okay, the shadow is obviously darker than everything else. And then, you figure out where the reflective lights are. That's going to be the next lightest thing after the shadow. And then you find the midtones and then the light. So just kind of like a systematic approach to it, a very simplified way to think about it, because when you complicate things, it's only going to make it harder for you to deal with, and you might give up a lot easier. So when you're able to simplify things, it's way easier process and to think about and break down. So the pencils I'm using for this, there's many different brands that I use. You can see to the right there, I have a big stack of pencils. It doesn't really matter what brand you use, but I end up using, I believe, a B, a 3B, a 5B, an 8B, and a 9B. So I kind of like depict those values with the pencils that I use. I try to break it down in that way. So now that I have the finished up the initial sketches and thought about it and kind of just observed the lemon simply, I'm going to jump into a larger sketch of it. I actually drew this sketch. It's actually a little larger than life, which is something you probably don't want to do usually, but it just turned out to be a little bit larger than life. So right now what I'm doing is just trying to plan out the proportions of things. Where is the top of the lemon? Where are the sides of the lemon? Where does the cast shadow end? I'm basically like drawing little tick marks, and I'm just drawing it in my mind without physically drawing it. And then I just try to connect these kind of marks. So now I'm starting out with a B pencil, just sketching very lightly, and I'm not committing myself to any line or anything like that. Just trying to get down the angles. And usually with something that's like round like this, like if you're drawing like an apple or an orange or a lemon or some kind of round object, sometimes you want to start out with angles. You don't want to start out with these curves, because some curves are a lot harder to kind of judge. So sometimes you want to just start out with straight lines, kind of draw like an octagon basically, and then you can kind of round it from there and figure out where your curved lines are going. So that was kind of my idea, and now I'm starting to work on the shadow. So basically the beginning stage here, I'm just getting down basic shapes, basic overall lines, and really focusing on the outline of it, focusing on the structure of it, and the the basically just the lines. Real simple. Also, take note of how far back I'm holding the pencil. I'm not holding it really close to the end of the pencil where the lead is. I'm holding it way far back, and that just allows me to stay a little bit looser with sketching. It allows me to not get really detailed yet, because I'm not even at the stage where I'm at the point of the drawing where I could still I could crumble this thing up, throw it away, start over. And really I could do that at any stage of the drawing, but even more so in the beginning here is where I could still crumble this thing up, throw it away, be done with it, and start over, because I just haven't committed myself to anything. I'm still working out small little angles, edges, trying to figure out where things are going. Now you can see my lines are getting a little bit thicker, they're getting a little bit darker, and that's something to be careful of. You may not want to do that, but I knew that this drawing was going to get a lot darker, so I was okay with what was happening. I was staying aware that when I was drawing this, I was staying aware that, okay, those lines are getting a little bit darker. I want to just be a little careful there and But where those dark lines is the line where I'm committing. That's most likely the most correct line. That's what I'm going for. So now I'm drawing a little spot for a highlight, and I want to leave that alone. I want to keep it the wide of the paper, and just kind of that whole area. And now I'm making some dark lines here, dark areas of the lemon that were actually really dark. It's hard to see on the photos actually, but you know, it's the ends of the lemon are basically where it was dark. And with this whole drawing, I didn't end up using any blending stumps, or I didn't smudge anything. I didn't use any tissues. I didn't use any Q-tips. I didn't use any brushes. I just used the pencil itself, and I just wanted to see what could I do with just keeping the texture of the paper and not getting caught up in all the details. I just wanted to depict the lemon with just value and simple pencil marks. So right now what I'm doing is sketching real lightly still, and I'm outlining I'm breaking up the light versus the shadow. I'm drawing the shadow areas right now. So where shadow meets light, that's what I'm drawing here. Still holding the pencil, you know, in the middle of the pencil. And also holding the pencil that far back, it keeps my hand off the paper and allows me to not smudge the drawing that I'm working on. That used to always be a problem for me when I was younger. I would always smudge all of the drawing that I had already drawn. So now I'm just lightly shading, and something to really take note of is pressure. What I mean by pressure is how hard you're pushing down. And right now I'm basically just barely putting any pressure on the pencil. I'm letting the pencil and the paper kind of do the work. But where I need to, I end up putting a little bit more pressure. And I just try to make it uniform as possible, all one value. But this is the beginning stage, so it's not as crucial. But as I get toward the end of the drawing and everything, I start making things darker and darker and darker. It'll be more crucial to the drawing um, to get the shading really streakless and looking very uniform. So now I'm working on the cast shadow. There were some different shadow shapes. I had a lamp with a few different lights on it, so it was casting just a few different shadows. I'm also taking note that right here underneath the lemon is the darkest part of the lemon, darkest part of the whole scene, so I'm taking note of that. And I'm just working, slowly working the shadow. So it's really simple stuff in the beginning. It's just you know, I think I'm still using the B pencil. I haven't moved up to a darker pencil or anything. You can use a 2B if you'd like. You can use a 3B. I'll end up jumping into a 3B and getting a little bit darker. But I'm still just taking notes in my mind and on the paper of where the darker areas are. So right now I'm shading in kind of just the darker areas, making them a little bit darker. And what this allows me to do is just slowly build up the drawing to darker values and deeper values. And yeah, because I don't want to get too dark right away. I mean, it wouldn't be that big of a problem. Most people, when they draw, they don't get dark enough. And I think a lot of beginners, if they were drawing this, they wouldn't have gone as dark as I'm going to do in the end here. You'll see how dark the lemon actually ends up looking. And like I said, I didn't even look at it in black and white until I was done. And I realized that I had drawn the cast shadow a little bit too dark. But other than that, I had it pretty close. It came out pretty close to the lemon. So now I'm just giving the lemon overall a value. Like I said, most people, they don't draw dark enough now. I put a white sheet of paper underneath the lemon, and I did that because I wanted to just focus on the lemon and its shadow and have a white background. So I already know, since that lemon has color to it, it's darker than the white sheet of paper. So the whole entire lemon is shaded in a certain value, besides the fact of the highlights on it. The highlights are going to be the white of the paper, but basically the entire lemon is at least, one value filled in. All right, so now I'm pretty committed to the lines I've made now. I like the shape of the lemon that I have. It's pretty close to real life. I'm working on the shadow. So I'm just slowly now, I'm just thinking about the values. I'm comparing the cast shadow, the value of the cast shadow to the lemon, and trying to get that correct. And just focusing on my shading. I don't want a lot of streaks in it. There's a few streaks here and there right now, but now I'm moving to a little bit darker. So now I'm going to slowly start working up a little bit darker. I believe this is a 3B. So now I go into the darkest areas and just make them a little bit darker. Now if I wanted to, I could just go straight in with an 8 or a 9B and just do the darkest areas, and maybe that is a way to do it. I mean, there's many ways to do a drawing. I could have went just as dark as possible in the very beginning and then just worked my way to the lights, and worked the rest of the drawing off of those darks. But for this, I just felt like it just felt right to kind of just slowly build it up into the darks. Because since I knew I was going to get pretty dark with the whole drawing, I didn't want to get too dark in the beginning, so I was just trying to kind of protect the value structure here and just do the best that I could. I mean, that's what it comes down to. So I'm watching that edge there, making sure I get the details right, make sure I get the angles correct, and then I just kind of shade around it and kind of blend it out a little bit. So now it looks like the lemon is, sitting on something. So once again, just slowly building that up, using a little bit more pressure now, and where needed. When you're doing a drawing like this, and you're shading like this, the pressure you use is going to vary, depending on where you are in the drawing. Sometimes you use a little bit more pressure. Sometimes you have to lighten up on the pressure. You have to be really sensitive to those things and really pay attention. And that's what's so difficult about drawing, is that it's something that's very hard to teach. You have to you have to really experience it and play around with it and learn it on your own about how much pressure to use, when to use it, and figure that out for yourself on your own. So I definitely encourage you to play around, and
It's 3:15.
in a future video I'll talk about, I'll do a video on like a value scale exercise, and you'll kind of learn doing that exercise. You'll kind of learn about pressure and values and creating a smooth gradient. So now I'm working on the shadow side and the reflected light side. And I'm always making sure that toward the end I'm going to really make sure that the reflected light is darker than the light side of the lemon. That's something I kind of struggled with, but I think I got it in the end. I think I got it correct. So once again, now that I'm using the 3B, I can get things a little bit darker, and I'm just honing in on those darker areas and just making them a little bit darker than they were. Um, so I'm just building up those darker areas with every darker shade of pencil that I use. Now if you want, you can use like tissues or Q-tip or blending stumps and blend all this out, blend the cast shadow out and everything, but it all depends on how detailed you want to get. For me, I wasn't really worried about the texture of the lemon and getting all those little dots and everything. It's not really my style to like get into texture and things with drawing. It depends on what you're drawing and all of that. But for this, I wanted to just focus on the values and the shape, the overall image of it, and see what I could achieve. So check it out. Just taking a little more time now, just making sure I'm getting the shadow um, area correct in its shape and where it blends out. Um, just trying to get everything smooth and not look very streaky. And like I said, it's just varying pressure of the pencil. I mean, it's something that's very um, it's like a real subtlety with drawing, and that's when it comes down to an art is like this picking up on the subtleties and the details, and using your materials in a subtle way. That's what's gonna push you to the next level. So now I'm just using the eraser, and I'm going back and just erasing kind of some of the sketchy lines that are sticking out, and I'm just kind of making things a little crisper and figuring that out. Now my lines are a little more committed, so I can get rid of some of the sketchiness of the original drawing. A lot of that fades away on its own anyway. Once you build up the whole drawing, you probably won't even really see those, but for me, I just wanted to clean it up a little bit here because it was kind of bothering me as I was drawing this. So usually you use some kind of brush to kind of brush it away so that you don't smear the painting and stuff. But I was just using my fingers real lightly and blowing them off the page and stuff, getting some of the eraser off. It's probably better to use a kneaded eraser, so I would definitely recommend a kneaded eraser or a gum eraser. Those are pretty good too. So now I think my lemon's looking pretty good. Although it's starting to look realistic, but look at the black and white version down in the corner, and you'll notice that the values are really different. I mean, it has to get a lot darker, and like I said, I don't think it's a very intuitive thing. You'd have to really observe the lemon and to understand, okay, wow, the lemon is a lot darker than I thought. Because when we think of yellow, we think, wow, a really bright lemon, it's not that dark, but it actually is. The values it's actually a middle gray almost. So that's kind of a trick, if you're struggling on a still life or struggling with drawing anything, you can always just take a quick photo of it on your phone or something or wherever and turn it to black and white and compare it to your drawing, and that'll give you kind of an idea of how much darker you need to go, how much lighter you need to go, just to figure things out. But like I said, with this drawing, I didn't really want to do that, so I waited till the end to kind of see any of my mistakes. And the cast shadow, I ended up, doing it too dark. So I kind of learned from that. I learned that I got the object pretty well, but the shadow I perceived as it being a lot darker than it actually was. So although the photo isn't going to be perfect, it'll be close, but um, I could just tell that's something that I got wrong. But anyway. So now you can see my values are starting to get closer together. They're starting to become, all of them are starting to become really close together, like a middle gray. So soon here I'm going to switch pencils and start darkening up those dark areas again. And that's what I'm doing right now. I'm just really slowly doing it. Really subtly, being in control, basically. Really controlling the values. I want to be in control here. So now I've noticed that the reflected light is it's lighter than the light area now, so I have to kind of push that back a little bit, darken it, so you can see that's what I'm doing here, really subtly, darkening it. And I'm going to move on to a darker pencil soon. I'll probably jump into like a 5B or an 8B or something, and hit those dark areas again, make those darker, and then move into the lights, make those a little bit darker where they need to be. And then that's how you just slowly build up the drawing with the darks. You darken the dark areas, darken the lighter areas, then you darken the lighter area, the dark areas again. So see, I switched pencils here, and then I went right into the dark area because that's what needs to be darkened. And you just keep darkening everything until nothing else needs to really be darkened. And if you need to, you lighten some things up with the kneaded eraser, and your drawing should be done. That's one way of working at it. There are many ways to do drawing. It's not a one size fits all, but yeah, this is a way to actually do it. And try to take note, like every stage that it gets a little bit darker, I try to be just a little bit more controlled with what I'm doing. I do it, I work in smaller areas and smaller areas, and I kind of just slow down a little bit, and I really make sure of what I'm doing before I do it, because working with graphite, it's not the most forgiving medium, it's not like painting. With painting, I can just paint over it or scrape it off, or there's a lot of things I can do with a painting. But with drawing, once it's on the page, it can be difficult to erase it and to get all the residual, graphite off. But so now I'm just working that cast shadow again, darkening that down. Obviously. So now the shadow looks like it fits in again. It's kind of fitting into the lemon again. Um, the whole drawing's kind of coming to life, but I'm just slowly building it up. And notice how my cast shadow is really smooth here. I got all the streaks out of it. So that's something you want to work on, is getting a large area like that and being able to shade it with your pencil and have it look soft like that and not very streaky. And now there's kind of, this is where I think that I darken the shadow a little bit too much. Is right at the end of the drawing here. I end up darkening a little too much probably, but not a huge mistake, not a huge deal, but it does add to the drawing. It makes it a little less unrealistic, but what can you do? You just do your best and observe your mistakes and learn from them. So hopefully you'll watch these videos, see what my mistakes are, and then hopefully you'll make less mistakes yourself. So that's really the whole point of these videos, is learning from my mistakes, learning from also from what works well for me, and just applying that to your drawings and to your artwork. So now I'm just trying to blend out the outer shadow, make it a little softer and where it needs to be. As the shadow moves farther away from the lemon, it just gets a little bit softer. The edges gets a little bit blurry, a little more blurry. So that's just what I'm working on there. So now I'm going to move into the lemon. Since I worked on the shadow, I kind of darkened that enough. Now I need to darken the shadows on the lemon. I think I'm using an 8B here or a 5B. Can't remember when I started using the 8B. But, one of those dark pencils. It's probably a 5B. So I'm just slowly working up the values, or working them down, working them darker. As you can see there, just working with the edge, getting a little more detailed, being a little more cautious. So like I said earlier, I'm just working the darks, working the lights, and just darkening them to how dark they need to be. You don't have to work this slowly. You don't have to do it in this many stages, but I think it's a good exercise to try and to just slowly work your drawing into where it needs to be. And this way you probably make a little less mistakes. Um,
It's 3:30.
but usually, like, what the big mistake is for like beginners and stuff is not getting dark enough. And one thing I do want to mention here is I actually like drawing with charcoal pencils. These are graphite, but charcoal pencils can be a lot of fun. They're kind of messy. They can be messy, but the cool thing about them is that um, you can get really, really dark. You can get really black with the values, and with graphite, I feel like it's just a little bit tougher to get as dark. So sometimes graphite can be a challenge because you actually can't get the value as dark as you would like it, and charcoal can just kind of supply that darkness that you need. And in the past, I've drawn with charcoal, and it's a lot of fun. So definitely try that as well, and just experiment and see what works best for you and what you enjoy. So now I'm working with even darker pencil, I believe now. Gonna start working on the shadow. Working that a little bit darker. So I'm just observing the lemon, observing all the shadows, comparing everything, and then just making some changes where need be. Mostly with drawing and art and stuff, it's just observing. You have to really observe, understand, and then create. That's really what it is. That's basically what it is. You know, observe, understand, and then, render, copy it, create it. Um, it's not an easy process, but to simply state it like that, maybe that'll help some of you out there. Because if you're drawing something or painting something and it doesn't look like what it actually looks like or what it is, then um, you're doing something wrong, because you want it to look like what it looks like. I mean, that's pretty obvious, but so we're getting close to the end of the drawing here. We're almost to about 40 minutes in. Actually, not even 40 minutes in, um, because in the beginning I did some value sketches, so those took up about 5 or 10 minutes. So this is probably like 30 minutes into this drawing, simple drawing. As you can see, I still need to get a little bit darker there underneath the lemon and kind of on the shadow side. So now I think this is the 9B here. I think this is as dark as it's going to get. So just working that dark accent under there, trying to get that area pretty dark. See, I think with charcoal this would have gotten a lot darker, and it just would have worked a little bit better. But like I said, you do what you can with what you have. So now I'm applying a little bit of pressure, but I'm not like, I'm not really indenting the paper or anything. I'm not getting super dark with it, but I'm not pushing really, really hard. I'm just pushing, kind of like a medium type of pressure. And then when I move up into the lemon here, you know, it's a little bit less pressure. So I'm just stepping back, kind of observing it, observing the lemon, figuring out where I need to go, what needs to be darker, what needs to be, you know, lighter. And this is where I start darkening the shadow a little too much. Sometimes you look at things for too long and your eyes kind of adjust or something, or you know, something just changes. Sometimes it's best to just look at the overall scene and squint down at it and observe the overall scene, and then you'll get the correct values of something. But sometimes if you just focus on the little details too much, you'll end up um, you know, drawing something too dark or too light, or you know, just getting it off a little bit. That could um, you know, bring the quality of your drawing down, and you don't want to do that. But even with that mistake, you know, I still think it's a pretty strong drawing. Um, you know, it's not like hyper realistic or anything. That wasn't really my goal, but you know, I just wanted it to look somewhat realistic, still kind of be a little sketchy. This is more on the finished side of like sketchy, but you know, it's the look that I like. Um, there probably could have been a little bit more highlight area on there, but not a huge deal. You know, it may have just helped bring make the values just look a little bit more correct overall. But still, like I said, this is not a bad effort after not drawing for many months. So I'm happy with it. And I hope this video has helped you, you know, it kind of showed you how I draw in real time and just give you some tips and some insight to how I do things and why I did it this way. And maybe you can apply some of this or most of this to your drawings, to your artwork. So now I'm hitting the eraser again, just working with the edges, with the outline, softening some things up a little bit, you know, cleaning things up. But I'm still being careful not to smudge my drawing because that's really easy to do. So getting pretty close to the end here, I'm gonna darken up some final shadows and you know, the reflected light and stuff like that, and then it's pretty much done. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. So there you go, darkening up the shadow areas. Still using the 9B. That's the darkest pencil I have, so blending out some of the light areas, blending out a little bit. adding some little dark details and giving the illusion of a little bit of texture going on. And I'm going to move down into the reflected light there, darken that down a little bit because it's not that bright. So I'm just stepping back, kind of observing it, seeing if that's where I want to stop it. You know, did I get it pretty realistic, pretty close, and that's where I end it. So anyway, thank you guys for watching. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Follow me on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram. Thank you for watching. Anyway, take care of yourself. Stay tuned for the next episode. Peace.